You know, there are so many journeys that we experience during a lifetime. And with different people as well. You can go through one journey with one person and have a whole separate experience with someone else, you know? And then you can meet people who are so similar to the last person that you once was a friend with, you know, too. So, years ago when my mother figure passed away, and I was so perplexed, so misinformed and unsure of what happened and how things, you know, were to be carried out. You know, I just didn't know where to turn. So I went and spoke to my spiritual advisor. In fact, myself as well as my two brothers went. And we were just so confused, trying to understand what actually happened. Having to go and identify a body at the morgue, touching the body. My brother held her like she was a baby. Kissed her body, you know, kissed her frozen body and everything. My other brother stood in the corner so shocked and crying. I never saw him cry like that before. And I was just in shock. Unacceptable how it all happened to me. That's how I felt. But you know, God has a bigger picture. Sometimes when things happen and you don't understand, when something similar happens, it's almost like a reflection on the past. And it shows you how God will prepare you for something that's about to happen or that does happen from a prior experience. Now, I didn't understand how this was even possible. And then, a man is broken up and hurt and confused because he's lost his first love. He's lost his first love, and it's not that he totally lost her, because he was actually a part of it all coming together. But you see, sometimes when people put money, greed before other things, they have a tendency to kind of separate it. And then in some cases, this is a form of narcissism, when you can actually commit a crime and then still be okay with acting as though you knew nothing about it. So, a man hears of his first love, prior girlfriend, being murdered. Now, he knew about it, and he took part in some parts of this as well. However, this is all unofficial. Nobody really knows except for the individuals involved. So it doesn't really hit him until he begins to look back and remember how this woman was there for him for everything. Making sure he had clean socks, making sure he had clean underwear, always listening to him and always giving him advice. Some of the advice he would receive, some of the advice not so much. But all of this flashes before his eyes, and he realizes she's really gone. Now, the woman passes away, but God gives her one more chance to be with this man. She, because her love was unconditional, because she never stopped loving him, and he never stopped loving her. But love to some people might not equate to the same meaning to others, okay? Your personal love experience and your personal view of love might not be the same as the person you're in love with. So let us continue. So at this point, God is calling her home, but she goes and she's in a spiritual room, a room in the in-between, before you are sequestered to go into like spiritual court to be evaluated for your behavior and what you did and what you didn't do, and how you handled things. Did you love people? Were you nice to people? You know, you're being evaluated for all of this. But before that, she's in a sitting room, and God gives her one more chance to speak to this man. And the man is actually married, locks himself up in a room with his daughter and his wife. And she opens the door spiritually for him to come in. And they think, the daughter and mother think he's going crazy. But he's been given this opportunity, even though he might not really deserve it. God is a forgiving God, and God is a loving God. So he allows this man to go into the spiritual room where he can meet with her for the last time. I said this before. Usually when you have unfinished business with one person, God will give you one last chance. Like a man who dies, okay? If God will give him like one more time to speak to the person who he might have had an issue with, that person will hear the voice internally, and they'll have that closure. That's a spiritual experience, you know? Everyone might not believe this, but everyone has had and is having their own spiritual experiences as well as their own spiritual awakening. Now, this might not be for the meek and mild. This might be very strong for some people to even accept. But again, this is God making the choices, and God allowing you to make certain choices and allowing everyone to have a certain peace when they're making that transition. So the man has this last moment, and he wants to stay. He wants to go where she's going. It's not until this point that he starts realizing the strength of what the situation actually was. And now he doesn't even know how to feel. He's upset. His heart is hurting him because he wants to go with her, and he can't believe this is actually happening. And the love comes back. He realizes all of the love that she actually had for him, for her to even be able to do this. Now, throughout their lifespan, she was always giving him advice and telling him spiritual things, and at first he didn't believe anything she said, because he's like, needle, 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 the Twilight Zone. You know, he's like, what in the world is she doing? Like, this lady always says something. But everything she gave him, every form of advice she gave him, it all was true. When she told him to invest in cable, and he didn't do it, cable became $1 billion business, and he didn't do it because he spoke to his friends, and his friends said, who gonna pay for TV, man? TV is free. So all of these different experiences that happened, and he started thinking about all these wonderful things she actually gave him advice on, and he never listened. So now he has the last 5 minutes with her. God is allowing this. They're in the spiritual room, and it's time for him to go. The clock is ticking. She has to go, and she has to go into spiritual court so that she can be evaluated and see where her transition is going to be. He just wants to go with her, but he cannot go. First of all, he could never go with her because he's part of the reason why she left as soon as she left, even though this, of course, God knew what was happening beforehand. But see, this woman was sequestered to leave a long time ago, but she didn't want to leave because she knew her children needed her support. Her children needed her to be there for them to get what they needed. If she had died earlier, she didn't know what these children would have become, because she felt as though her ex was not as responsible as she would have wanted him to be, or as the children would have needed him to be. And everything would have not worked out quite as well. So she always asked God for more time. This time, she wasn't able to ask. She didn't know this was going to happen. She didn't know she was going to be murdered. So she has these last moments with her ex, and she goes back into the spiritual realm, and he is left devastated. His wife doesn't know what to do with him. She thinks he's going crazy, and so does his daughter. But he locked them in the room because he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know whether he was supposed to protect them or what when it first started. But now he's left in all of his feelings and his regret for taking part in part of this whole thing. You know, sometimes you'll take a position. Like let's say he's a Mason, okay? And he's given a certain position. And maybe in his Masonry, they've given him a job to do. And he's supposed to do this job. And the problem is that when he's supposed to do the job, he wanted to do the job. He was wholeheartedly involved. But as he looks at things later on, he starts regretting, like, what did I do? What part did I play? What, that. He has to go into the hospital because he needs to regain his consciousness because he's all over the place. So he goes and gets evaluated at the hospital. And the doctors say, there's nothing wrong with you, man. I think you might be going through anxieties. For what reason? Only you would know. His anxieties that he was going through was because of his decisions that he made. Now, who knows? Whether he was in a Mason, he could have been a part of a club. Who knows? He could have been a part of a fraternity. Who knows? But whatever the position he was in, this was the position that he took on in regards to taking part in whatever the task was in reference to the separation of him and his ex. So time goes on. They have to plan a funeral. Funeral is planned. The funeral goes on. You know, his ex has blood on her hands from this from being unalived, you know, through a gun. So they use white gloves to cover her hands throughout the funeral. And the daughter has to see her mother's hands one more time. And everyone thinks that she's crazy. Like, why does she need to see the hands? She needed to make one more connection. This woman was the woman that she knew as mother, and she needed that connection. So she went up when the funeral, when they had the revealing of the body, and she tried to take the glove off of her mother's hand. Spiritually, she connected with the mother at that point in time. Her intensity in wanting to touch her mother's hand. Now, of course, you know, it was just supposed to be a body that was left there. Not really, you say, you know, she died a long time ago, come on. But her spirit knew that the daughter needed some closure. And she, feeling the love and the genuineness of the daughter, God allowed her spirit to come and connect with the daughter. The daughter touching the mother's hand for the last time. The connection of almost electricity, the feeling, had her pass out at the funeral. Now, some people say, why do people go crazy at these funerals? They do so much. And trust me, I have seen a lot go on at a funeral. But one intense moment at funerals that people seem to, maybe some people who are not as connected to the individual might not see. That is the pain and, I'll say, the selfishness. You know that they may be going on to a better place, but all you know is that you want them with you. You miss them, you love them, you cannot let go. So this is your closure. So this is what happened. Now, we're looking at that delicate situation and we're saying, wow, can it be that way? Then she has to look back and imagine, or should I say remember, what our spiritual advisor said. He said, there is a connection between the dead and the living spiritually. And if you meditate, you can make the connection. Some people may have made the connections already in their spiritual practice. Some people have not. Some people cannot. Some people cannot because they don't believe in some cases. And some people cannot because they don't sit long enough to meditate to be able to have any reaction. And then some people, they just sit. And their experience will happen when it's supposed to happen. You see, you can't put time on everything, and you cannot pressure yourself either. God is allowing certain things to happen when they happen. But you do have to believe. So this couple, before separating and him marrying someone else, they went through a great deal of drama, as well as, as other things, as relationships go. But when you're going through any experience with a loved one, the connection is going to be unparalleled to other relationships. So keep this in mind throughout the coming days. There's a lot going on out here. Spiritual wars are going on. And one thing we have to always remember, and that is that love, there's nothing larger than love. Love and God, love is a part of God. God taught us how to love. And unconditional love, this woman loved this man regardless of what parts he played in it, because she realized that, karmically speaking, we all have certain things that we've come here to do. And in our practices, there are going to be certain things that carry out. You can always forgive the people, but you don't always have to be around the people. So she moved on to another transition, to another realm. But other people still have to be judged. And while they're making their transitions, or those who've already made their transitions, they're going to have to be evaluated. A good movie to look at that might help you to understand what I just spoke of would be Ghost, and the other one would be Defending Your Life. Okay? Both of those should be watched. I mean, Defending Your Life is supposed to be more of a comedy, but it deals with what it is that I've been talking about today. You can take it or leave it. Love is the answer, is really what the baseline is. So regardless of what another person has done or is doing, remember that you can always love them, as the Bible says, hate the sin, but you can still love the person, right? Of course, I'm paraphrasing that. So I thank you for joining us today. This is lovely being you, because it is so lovely loving other individuals.